Well, you can look. There's nothing wrong with opening the door of opportunity for people. Like the whole point of being an adult is to have more experience and to share that experience with other people to help them. Yeah, you just don't want to be your mother, right? I mean that's what that sentence is saying. Yeah, is
Mm.
it's not really that you don't want to help people. It's that somebody didn't help you and you don't want to be them because you know they had an effect on you. But that, but once you recognize that element of the problem, then you can minimize it. You can't completely erase it, but you minimize it because none of us can erase those parts of our personality, right? I can't erase who my mother is or was. I can't erase who my father is or was. Um, I've got to I've got to learn to manage that in an intelligent way, and that's that's the growth. It's not living with being manipulated. It's learning to not be manipulated.
Mm.
And look, those who have experienced, oh, you can only help people with things that you yourself have experienced. So if you haven't experienced rock climbing, you can't help people with rock climbing. And there are people who need help with rock climbing. That's the way life works, right? So, yeah, and that was you defaulting into being your mother when you should have stepped up and said, I've got this experience. What I think you should do is do this, this, this. Try that. If that doesn't work, use what works, right? But you should have been self-confident about the experience that you do have. This is what I do. I would use this strategy. Look, it's crazy it's crazy the shit that you pick up in the strangest places, right? And look, there could be something that you help this person with on a climbing wall that they use in another area of their life, right? I mean, that's
Mm.
basically why we do that because it affects all areas of our life. I was um I was helping a builder in London many years ago.
You
Go
were.
back almost 30 years ago. I was helping a builder. Is it 30 years ago? No, 20 25 years ago. I was helping a builder in London, and and I can't remember exactly what we were doing, but we had to climb a ladder and do something like for really high up on the house, and it was quite high, and I was a little bit, scared, and I asked the builder that I was working with, are you not worried, like being so high up a ladder, that you could have an accident or you could fall or you're leaning off trying to do, you're not worried, and he said there are potential problems, but he said I think about it in my head
Mhm.
before I do it, and I plan out what I will do.
Mhm.
If the ladder falls this way, I will do that. If the ladder falls that way, I will do that. I minimize the risk. Yeah, and this idea that at that point in time, the idea that someone had actually gone through those processes, and those processes were how you prevent the problems and overcome the fears, was a complete revelation for me because I'd never thought of life like that before. But it was so simple
Mhm.
and so obvious and so true and the right thing to do. And then you could take that piece of learning there, that couple of that 10 seconds of conversation, and apply it everywhere basically. Yeah. Here's a lot of people who have grown up with adversity. I've realized this in myself and other people recently. When I have a conversation with somebody,
Mhm.
it's like New Year. There's always fireworks going off. And if you imagine those little sparks, every spark is a possible direction of conversation.
Mhm.
I see it all. I see every word. I see every I see every phrase. I see every possible direction of every phrase. I see every way that the conversation could go. See everything.
And you
Now
have to choose one.
yeah, and I can only talk about one thing, but I can see everything. And it's a skill that's helped me a lot in my life. But I've recently wondered, where did that skill come from? And because that skill is also limiting, because when you can see every possibility, sometimes you don't choose anything. Because if you see only one way, then only one way, right? But if you see every way, right? I mean, if you see everything that could happen in the game, it paralyzes you. You end up doing nothing. And I realized that this came from not having a real-time relationship with my parents, where I had to think carefully about what I said to them because I was worried about their reactions to it because they wanted me to behave in a certain way. And trying to please them led to me analyzing everything in order to try to please them, which led to
Mm.
me imagining every possibility of every possible situation, which paralyzed me. Yet when you have to manage the inabilities and the disabilities of your parents because their communication skills are not as they should be, then you you begin to wonder about all the consequences of everything that could possibly happen, and you try to manage everything within your own mind, and that's an impossible scenario to live through. Completely impossible. And then this paralyzes your relationships with other people because you then begin to imagine the possible scenarios of those things that you're going to do in your interactions and conversations with them. And the truth is that we can't actually predict everything, so it doesn't matter, and we shouldn't think about that stuff anyway. Because it just paralyzes us with fear that something negative could happen and prevents us enjoying things and living in the moment. And and th- this is far more common than we think, and I see this in business. Yeah, it's far more common than we think that too often we're saying no for other people rather than allowing them to say no for themselves. We're making the decision for them rather than allowing them to make the decision. Force equals failure.
Failure.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of it's a classic phrase in business, the paralysis of analysis.
Mm.
You spend so long thinking about what is right that you don't actually achieve what you want to achieve because of the thoughts. And if you can bring things forward, like I've realized with me, for some reason, there's the first half of my day, I'm able to instantly know what's right.
Mhm.
But and then that skill drops between say about 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock, and then after 6, I can't I can't consciously make any decision knowing it's the right decision because I'm always thinking about the different consequences. I can I can if I force myself to do something, I can do it, and it's okay. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think it's an energy level issue where there's more clarity at certain points at certain times, and as the energy level drops, the clarity or the ability to execute and perform is less good. Um,
Mhm.
and understanding that gives you an opportunity to refresh because when you know that how do you improve the how do you improve your life? You make decisions. How do you improve the quality of your decisions? You know when to make the decision and you understand when it is the right decision. You know, you're like, if I make this decision now, it probably won't be so good as if I make it tomorrow. Yeah, knowing that you still need to make a decision about something, but realizing about the quality of a decision. And then this is the head fuck, right? Which is that it probably doesn't matter as long as you make a decision what the decision is. It doesn't matter because it's the process that leads to information.
Mhm.
Because if you get it wrong, it'll just be, if you're intelligent, it'll just be, I got it wrong because I did that. Right, okay, let's work on improving that. You know what the classic example is? The classic example is school kids where the boy wants to ask the girl out or the girl wants to ask the boy out, but they're paralyzed by thinking about asking them out instead of just asking them out. And they're paralyzed because they're overthinking all the different possible consequences because they've spent their time in their life trying to manage the consequences because they didn't have any real relationships, because they had to spend all their time managing their relationships and ensuring. When you fear the outcome, you overmanage the process.
Mhm.
And then you understand when you understand that, you understand that that you're living in fear of things, not in sort of a loving, embracing state. Why do you think there are so many systems and processes in place in life in the world? Because there's this organization called government that fears the outcome of everything. And so they attempt to overmanage everything because they live in a state of fear. Because
Mhm.
we can't let people do what they want because the world would fall apart. Well, there's no evidence that the world would fall apart. It's just, the projection of their fear. Because, if a person is like me and they generally believe that most people are good people and who, honestly get things wrong, which sometimes has really bad negative consequences, but if you believe most people are good people, you don't need to manage everything so much.
Understand.
There's there's nothing wrong with processes as long as we're able to live with the complications of the processes. Like we live with what we are able to manage, and it's very interesting the different concepts of the word manage, right? Manage as in organizations, but also manage as in have the ability to do something. There's a lot of managers who can't manage. There's probably more managers who can't manage than can manage. It's funny. Society's expectation drives me mad, right? Like, if you don't wear a certain type of clothing, then people will not respect you. And for a long time, I conformed to that, and now I've always had the same thought, and I still have it today, and I think it's still correct today, even though everyone's always told me it's wrong. I still believe it's correct today, which is if you're a good person, you're going to treat me the same whether I'm driving a
Where
Ferrari or I'm living under a bridge, right? Right? You know, you're gonna show empathy for the person in the Ferrari because of the problems they have with that. You're gonna show empathy with the person under the bridge for the problems they have with that, right? And obviously maybe there could be 1,000 different reasons for these things to happen. And here's the other head fuck, right? One thing at one point in time can change everything. I guarantee you, if you find this is from my interviews with people. This is so important. This is so 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 important. Can't believe how important this is. Everything
mm,
great and everything terrible can be traced backwards in time to one thing. That if that thing had not happened, then that course would not have taken place.
that one thing.
One thing, and what does this mean? This means that everything we do matters. Everything we do is important. Everything.
Mhm.
You have to treat every interaction, as important. Yeah, how do you yeah, how do you know which thing is important? You have to treat everything as important. How do you know which person is important? You have to treat everybody as important.
Right. Mm.
And yeah, how
And
do you know which road is going to be the future road? Well, you have to believe that every road could be the future road. Refinement, make learning to make better decisions through analyzing the information around about us. Um, Learning to make better decisions through analyzing the information within us as well. Um, yeah. um, how much of this job is about how it will make me feel and how much of the job is about how it will make other people feel. Then realizing that we inevitably have very little ability to manage the consequences of how other people will feel in the long run. So we better manage ourselves
mm.
first because um, why why do things not work? They, they don't work because we don't apply these things to ourselves first. Society is built on hypocrisy, right? Doctors have the shortest lifespans. They're not able to practice what they preach. Uh, it's I, the, how many teachers the way to teach is live in a state of learning, right? Live within a state of learning. We are able to absorb new things. That's the way to teach other people to learn, right?
Mm.
Yeah, you sort of teach other people to cook by cooking yourself, right?
Showing the, not
Yeah,
telling.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. We have to put ourselves on the other side. In each communication we have with people, in order to communicate well, we have to put ourselves on the other side. What are their wants? What are their needs? What are their feelings? Um, what are they experiencing? And if we can do that, then we get closer to being better communicators. Um,
Mm.
Question, how can you do that in a class full of 12 kids? Well, you can't because you'd have to be 12 different people. It's almost impossible. So we aggregate and we average, and naturally people lose out.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no other way that it can be done. Yeah, you got 12 kids in a class. Here's the analogy, right? You got 12 kids in a class, but you've got one ball, right?
And
You,
what do we do with that ball?
yeah, you throw it in the air, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and the kids all fight to get the ball. Welcome to the education system in a nutshell. That's the education system. Because the ball is actually the teacher. Yep. Microphone. Drop the mic. That's it, right? Because I'm not going to say anything more clear than that today, right? To anybody. Um, that's the
Mm.
analogy for the day, right? Um, the ball is the teacher, and all the kids are fighting for it. And then and then we wonder why there's conflict. Hmm?
Mm. Mm.
Well, the situation will inevitably create conflict.